But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Sports Daily with Jacob and Tommy. Still to come, Jim Rome at 11, right here on KFH.
Sports, lighter news, and great comedy with Bob and Tom mornings. 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita, always live on the free Odyssey app.
Hey, Wichita, it's Jacob Albracht. Stay right there for the latest breaking in sports talk. It's Sports Daily coming up next, exclusively on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
I'm Chris Rose with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Dak Prescott threw for 2 scores in the Cowboys' 20-point win over the Eagles. Dallas now 10-3 in first place in the NFC East. Philly also 10-3 falls into the wild card spot. Meanwhile, the Niners, who sit at 10-3 as well, are in first place in the NFC after beating the Seattle Seahawks. The Bills stunned the Chiefs 20-17 after a late Kadarius Toney touchdown was wiped off the board for offensive offsides. Kansas City has dropped 4 of its last 6. The Ravens beat the Rams 37-31 in overtime and a 76-yard Tylan Wallace punt return score. Baltimore now 10-3 and currently the 1 seed in the AFC. The Saints beat the Panthers 28-6. The Bucks topped the Falcons 29-25. Bucks, Saints, and Falcons all sit at 6 and 7 in the NFC South. Tampa leads the division due to tiebreakers. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Every 40 seconds, a child is reported missing. Find the Children is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping find missing kids. You can be a part of their mission by donating your unwanted car. Call 1-800-775-5622. You'll receive the maximum tax deduction, and we provide fast, free pickup. Call 1-800-775-5622. Donate your unwanted or unused car. Call 1-800-775-5622. This advertisement was paid for by Cars R Us and Find the Children.
Imagine having all the money you need for retirement, all the income, every month, guaranteed. That's Secure Future Investor, an indexed annuity tied to growth in the stock market, but without any risk of loss ever. It's guaranteed money for life income, no matter how long you live. Call 888-509-2228. 888-509-2228. Sponsored by GP Agency, Inc., Raleigh, North Carolina. Licensed in all states. Performance may vary. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It's a Monday on Sports Daily, a Reaction Monday, and we have lots to reaction to. KU fans feeling pretty good after taking down those pesky Missouri Tigers. K-State fans feeling good after a big win over LSU. Shocker fans, not so much. Chiefs fans, not so much here on a Monday. We'll get into all of it throughout the show here today. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor. Max Power in with us, producing for us for Chad Chambers, who's out for a little while. He'll be back later this week. Glad to have Max in. Glad to have you on board with us as well, whether you're listening to us over the air, whether you're watching us on our video streams on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitch. We appreciate your viewership. Either way, you can get in touch with the program on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. It's open for you. We're going to give away some movie tickets today, so stay tuned for your opportunity to win those. Welcome in. Let's start with the Chiefs, Tommy. Well, first of all, I guess, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Good weekend. You and I got together yesterday, watched the Chiefs game, had a good time with that. I broke my soup is not a meal stance for the party.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it long term. I'm not going to change my mind, but for one night only, I was okay with that.
Your wife made some delicious chili, and it was easy to, and some cornbread. Just crumble that cornbread up in there, and toss it in the chili, and boom, you got yourself a full meal.
Yeah.
It was delicious. Beans in the chili. I wasn't gonna say anything before I got a look at it, but I'm very much a beans and chili person. Which I think is counter to where I'm from. I think the no beans and chili might be a Texas thing, but that's hot garbage. Put some beans in that chili for me, please. My mom made it growing up with beans. That's how chili needs beans. Let's just get that out of the way right now. But it was delicious. We had a good time. We watched the Chiefs. That was not as good a time watching them stumble through as we still try to evaluate what this team is and can be. It's an interesting discussion. It's finally boiled over, I think, as you could see in the post-game comments. Last week, Mahomes and Kelsey were quick to, no, it's on us, it's on us. But I think after 3 or 4 weeks of end game calls, and they're not excuses at all, but they've happened. And as you're frustrated and going through some stuff, it clearly boiled over. I don't think we've ever seen Mahomes that way. I wonder if that's a motivating factor because of that, right? That's new. You wonder what impact that will have. But as I've slept on it, Tommy, and thought a lot about it, honestly, the Chiefs, just like this year for them, they don't have the margin of error they've typically had. And when you play a desperate and good team like Buffalo and you make mistakes and you're missing, 4 of probably your top 10 players in that game due to injury, that's hard to overcome in the NFL. And the Chiefs just don't have that margin of error anymore. Like that ability to just, no matter what, we got Mahomes, we'll be fine. I think that's the difference this year. And then obviously their wide receiver room. I mean, this is like a running joke at this point. The mistakes, the drops, the everything. It's just absolutely absurd. But it is reality. And can they overcome that? We'll see. They've had some big wins this year. They've had some frustrating losses. I don't think they've had any losses that make us think, oh, they're outclassed by XYZ team. But they don't have the margin of error. They're in real danger of not getting home field. And that does damper the prospects of trying to win another Super Bowl, certainly.
You call the wide receiver room a running joke, and I get that, but I also don't find it very funny. I mean, it's something that has happened all season long, and I don't understand how you can have so many different situations throughout the season that you can clearly point to one particular unit as being the root cause of the majority of the issues with this team. There are 4 games out of the 5 that the Chiefs have lost this season. 4 of them came down to either a wide receiver drop or a wide receiver penalty. 4 of them. And it's crazy because so many different times when you look at a team when they lose, you can point at maybe bad quarterback play or, defensive units that aren't, stopping anybody or whatever. This is so unique when you look at a wide receiver room that literally that's the root cause of all the issues. I understand what you're saying as far as the frustrations boiling over with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, but I was really disappointed with their comments after the game last night when they're talking about the officiating. They're talking about, how it's disappointing that they made that call when they did. The reason that I'm disappointed with that is because it was the right call for the officials to make. It was the right call. Direct your frustrations towards the people who are actually making the issues. That's Kadarius Toney in this situation.
It reminds you of Jawan Taylor, right?
Kadarius Toney is a professional football player who, he's not a rookie. It's not like it's his first game in the NFL. You should know where to line up. What are you doing? That's the most basic thing, where the ball is, where the line of scrimmage is, and where you line up. How do you do that?
So I don't think, and I agree with you. Line up, it makes no difference to the play. Line up where you're supposed to line up. I think the frustration wasn't in that it was the wrong call. I think, 2 things. Their frustration has boiled over from some no calls the week before at the end of a game. I think they're frustrated, generally speaking, that they have games ending on that kind of a call. I think those 2 in particular are frustrated because of the amount of work and perfection it goes into pulling that play off, which was just absolutely a masterpiece, right? I think there's frustration there. But I think their general frustration on that particular instance is they've, Andy Reid's coached in the league for a long time. Patrick Mahomes has played in the league now a long time. Their frustration came in that, and I think you've seen enough people involved in the league reacting to this the same way. It's not that it was the wrong call. It's that it's the right call. It's that forever in this game, officials check receivers at the line and will just say, hey, back up. Right.
But why would you leave it up to
an
official
I
to
get
make
it.
that call?
That's not what,
right? Do your job.
Yes,
do your
correct.
job. And you don't even
Correct.
have to worry about the officials at that point.
I'm just
you
trying
remove
to
the officials out of it.
This is where Mahomes and Reed became frustrated, I think. So they had NBC last night on Sunday Night Football. I think their official, is Terry McCauley. And he came on and he explained. He was like, number one, it was the right call. And everybody agrees that it was the right call. But he's like, here's the perspective that you're not going to. And he brought it up. He said, historically, and it was like one a year maybe that this call was made. Offensive offsides. One time a year, I think, is what he said for a long time. It's been called 11 times this year. So clearly there has been an emphasis on this, right? And I think that, if that's the case, one, you got to communicate that to teams. I'm not making an excuse for Kadarius Toney. Line up on side. Just like the Jawan Taylor thing. Like at some point, line up differently. Stop getting called for the penalty, right? But I think what you saw from Mahomes and Reed is such a rare occurrence that it gives us real insight to how frustrated that team is right now. Any other time, they're not. And Patrick Mahomes certainly isn't doing that on the sideline. They're definitely not bringing it into post-game comments, right? The week before, they had the opportunity to do that on a bad call, right? On an incorrect call on the pass interference, and they wouldn't do it. So I think if nothing lends itself to the amount of frustration that this team is feeling right now, let it be that. And Mahomes is never going to throw his receivers under the bus. He won't. But the camera crews right now are so locked into, let's just get his reaction every play, and you can see it. Now, he's not immune either. He had a lot of bad throws yesterday. We're watching the game, and I'm like, dude, Mahomes, like ground balls, what is happening? Everybody is out of sync. He's making bad throws. They're more often doing the wrong thing at wide receiver, but it's just piling up right now. And the question will be, can they weather it? I love that he got fired up like that after the game. I think it may be the thing that does light a fire a little bit. Not that professional athletes ever have to have that. And the other thing Mahomes was frustrated about, by the way, is that Von Miller was offside on the very next play. So I think generally speaking, there's just been some frustration with officiating because it continues to be so impactful at the end of their games. I think that fire could be the thing. We'll see. We've never seen Mahomes act that way. Not one time in his career.
Here's my rebuttal to that. I've heard multiple people, and you're the most recent one, that have said, all right, this is the turning point. This is where
I don't know if it
crucial
is.
Pivotal point, and this is where you just mentioned Mahomes getting fired up, and this is kind of where you kind of see things, the tide start to turn.
No, I said I want to see if that happens. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
But I've heard other people that have said, all right, this is the moment now. All the cards are on the table, and it's pivotal and the turning point and crucial and all that, and we'll see how they turn things around. I would argue there have been several of those pivotal moments throughout the season, and they have not risen to the occasion after them. I'd look back to the MVS drop that lost the game for them. In my mind, that's a pivotal turning point where, after that game, you're like, all right, what do we do? We got to fix this. And they didn't. They just, stood pat. Or even going back further, clearly the wide receiver room was an issue before the trade deadline. Okay, they're going to do something to fix it and reinforce it. And they did nothing. I don't have a whole lot of optimism that even with the situation like what happened last night with the referees, magically something is going to happen where they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and the cards are on the table. We're going to turn things around right now. The bottom line is that if the Kansas City Chiefs did not have the most undisciplined unit in the NFL in their wide receiver room, they would be a one-loss football team. That's reality. That's reality. That's not even conjecture. That's the truth. If they didn't have a wide receiver room that dropped the football and committed penalties, they would be a one-loss football team right now. It's as simple as that. And so if I'm Patrick Mahomes, sure, I'm absolutely frustrated. But you know what I'm frustrated by? I'm not frustrated by the referees. I'm frustrated by the fact that my coaches, my teammates, my front office, they've let me down this season and not surrounded me with people that can actually get the job done. This is one of the prime years of Patrick Mahomes' career, and they're wasting it. They are wasting it by giving him guys that couldn't even suit up for a rec league football team, much less an NFL team.
I think that Chiefs fans, and maybe you're speaking a little bit as a fan here, have become somewhat entitled. There's a reason NFL teams have never won 3 Super Bowls in a row. It is really hard to do, right? I think that hosting 6 straight AFC championships, like all of the things that have gone into this, it's a down year, and that's going to happen, right? It just is. The reality is the wide receiver room's not good enough. It isn't, but it's not like they didn't try. They made wrong decisions, but they didn't ignore it.
What did they do? They
drafted 2. They've drafted 2 receivers in the last 2 years in the first 2 rounds. They weren't cheap. They signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling to a big deal. They got it wrong, but it wasn't a lack of effort. They didn't make good decisions. And Rashee Rice is a good decision. He's going to be a good player. Travis Kelce's a year older. MVS is not a good player. He's very bad. He was bad before he came in. That was a bad signing. Flat period, full stop. Kadarius Toney, they didn't risk a ton, but they risked enough, and he's not good enough. And that's a problem, obviously, but it's not for lack of effort. I don't think there was, they just evaluated the position wrongly with some of the players that they brought in, but they're trying to bring players in. I think that they played a good team yesterday without their lead back in a game they definitely needed to run the ball, right? Without two of their defensive leaders that we've seen this year, and without their starting left tackle. They played Buffalo with those circumstances. That's a tough spot to try to win a game. They were in position for one. They had a great play drawn up, a boneheaded mistake called it off, and they're frustrated. So I think the reality for the Chiefs is we just have to look at it in reality and say they're not clearly cut the best team like they have been for most years in recent history. The question becomes, are they good enough if they're healthy come playoff time? Chris Collinsworth brought up a great point last night when the Cowboys were smashing the Eagles and everyone's trying to make proclamations on, who's the best team, and Collinsworth was like, well, people ask me that all the time and my answer is the same. How healthy are you when you get there? He's like, that's always my answer because it's almost a battle of attrition in this league. Now, for the Chiefs over the years, it hasn't. They just sort of have been able to overcome any of that stuff. This isn't one of those years. They're not good enough offensively to do that. And they're not good enough defensively to continually lose some of their key guys, right, and maintain that defense we've seen. So I think with the Chiefs, the reality is we got to just look at it and say, okay, we've seen this team this year. We know what they are. It's not like fluky that they're losing these games. This is what they are, right? They're an 8-5 team that is in the upper half of the AFC. And when the playoffs come, can they beat any team they would play? I think the answer to that is still yes. In a one-game scenario, I think the Chiefs are capable of beating anybody. I don't think any team in the NFL outside of maybe San Francisco this year, you could say, boy, I don't know if anybody's going to beat them. That doesn't mean I think San Francisco's unbeatable. It just means as we watch it and as we watch things, the Ravens were taken to overtime by the Rams yesterday. The Chiefs could beat the Ravens if the Rams can take the Ravens to overtime in Baltimore. So all of these little things that we see, it's just, that is what the Chiefs are going to be this year come postseason. It's not a foregone conclusion. They may not even be favored in some of the games. They're probably going on the road. Their chances to win one are far lower than they have been in years past. And that's what it is. Now it's back to what it used to be in the NFL, and you take a shot.
We're watching the game yesterday, you and I together, and I looked over to you at one point and I said, this looks like a one and done team. This looks like a team that will play in the playoffs.
That team yesterday looks like a one and done team. Yes.
And here's the reason why I say that I don't think that even if healthy, they go into the playoffs and they look like a team that can make a run. It has nothing to do, well, I don't want to say nothing to do with the wide receiver issues. That's clearly a part of it, but that's not my reasoning behind saying that. My reasoning behind saying that is in the last 3 games, and I tweeted this last night, in the last 3 games, the Chiefs have fallen behind early by scores of 14-0, 14-6, and 14-0. In the 3 games before that, the Chiefs did not score half of those 3 games before. So we're talking about the last 6 games. the Chiefs have not been able to string together a full 60 minutes of football. They haven't done it. You have to probably go all the way back to, I don't know, maybe the Chargers game in October, maybe
Correct.
the Bears game before that, when they actually put together a complete 60 minutes of football. Even the Raiders game, when they flipped a switch in the second quarter and ended up beating Vegas by a ton, they fell behind 14-0 to start that game. So that makes me believe that when you get into the playoffs, they're going to have stringing together an entire 4 quarters of football. It's been an issue all season long.
So I would ask you, though, I would counter that with what team is doing that in the NFL? Maybe San Francisco.
The Cowboys did it last night against
the Cowboys.
The
Have played that was they had played cupcakes before that, but they did. I don't want to take anything away from the Cowboys. That was awesome last night. I loved every second of it. Don't get me wrong, but I certainly in the AFC, no team is doing that. Right? Baltimore can't play a second half to save its life. Right? If they're the top team, and we'll see Miami. Miami is going to have to start playing somebody at some point. But, it'll be hard. And this will be hard for the Chiefs, too, because the reality is those games you were just talking about, Tommy, Denver, Miami, Philadelphia, the Packers, the Bills, you're talking about all high-quality teams there. The Raiders, they did end up beating by 14 points. They started slow, but those other games are against teams that are in the mix for the postseason. Those are good teams in the league. The next 4, Patriots, Raiders again, the Bengals, who actually look really good now, and at the Chargers, who look like crap. So, the reality is the Chiefs are probably, and this is just normal NFL business, right? This is different than what we're used to with the Chiefs. Probably the Chiefs are going to look pretty good and a whole lot better over the next 4 games. Why? Because they're playing a soft portion of their schedule. And then we'll feel really good again. But we've got to remember this 6-game stretch where they played high-quality teams and remember what it is and not get overly optimistic that, all right, they've got it figured out now. No, the reality is they're going to play worse teams, and they'll probably do much better against worse teams than they've done against the better teams. So then again, it will come into, do they have a shot in any game they play in the postseason? Yes, I still think they'll have a shot in any game they play in the postseason. They'll have good matchups. They'll have bad matchups. It'll come down to certain specific things. Buffalo is actually a bad matchup to me without Isaiah Pacheco. And you pointed this out yesterday, and I haven't even realized this, how effective teams have been running the ball against the Chiefs. I liked James Cook in the game. I didn't realize that it had gotten that bad. And even in yesterday's game, the Bills didn't commit to the run. Nobody's committing to the run against the Chiefs for whatever reason, and they didn't either, even though Cook was lighting them up. So I don't know how big a deal that is. It won't be as big a deal now with Nick Bolton back, I would venture to guess. And once they get Tranquil, if they can get Tranquil and Bolton back, they're going to be much better against the run. But they haven't had both of those guys healthy. What, 3 games this year, maybe 4 that those two have played together?
And look, I think the one thing that I'm going to do over the next 4 games is, not automatically think that, because it's a quote unquote softer portion of the schedule, that the Chiefs are going to roll. I mean, you go back to,
no, I don't know that they'll roll, but they'll look better.
You go back a week ago, they're playing the Packers, and the Packers are, I think, on the ascent. There's no doubt about that with Jordan Love, but I think a lot of people penciled that in as, okay, like they're playing the Packers. They're clearly a better team than Green Bay is, but the Packers did a great job game planning the Chiefs. They kept the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. They ran the ball effectively against a defense for Kansas City that, while really good, they're not very good at stopping the run and long sustained drives. The Bills did that in the second half yesterday. They just kept the ball. I know they didn't fully commit to the run, but they kept the ball in their hands quite a bit. And that's what teams are doing, I think, to combat Kansas City. They keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. And then what ends up happening is the Chiefs finally get the ball back offensively, and boom, it's a 3 and out, and it's right back to the other team. So there's just so much is out of sync right now, and so much that we're accustomed to. I think that's the challenge. So much that we're accustomed to is not happening nearly at the same level like we're used to.
And what's so out of sync is uncurable if it doesn't come internally. That's the problem. This wasn't any different last year, except the Chiefs were able to counter with long sustained drives of their own, right? That's what they did to try. Teams are always going to try to keep Mahomes off the field. But last year, they had players making plays to help them sustain those drives, not dropping passes, not making critical mistakes, not, you set yourself up for the Kelsey Tony lateral play, not just in that game, all year long, you're setting that play up by what you're
Yep.
showing defenses.
Yep.
And you have that happen. That play is absolutely a microcosm of this entire season. They have worked all year on that play. They pull it out at the literal perfect spot to win them a game, and the receiver is offsides, a penalty we have never seen called in the history of football because it just doesn't happen. And that's it. That's this season.
And again, that's not a referee
defined
thing. That's
no.
it,
I'm not saying it's
like,
I'm not saying it's a referee
I'm saying
thing.
like line up better. Like do your
Right.
job. And you
Yeah.
know what? Like you mentioned, like fixing things internally. You know what they could do today? They could cut Kadarius Toney. That's what they could.
No,
do
they can't
internally.
because they can't replace him. They don't have anybody to put out there. That's a Brett
I'd
Veach
rather
issue.
have.
And again,
I'd rather have 10 players on the field than 11 and have that 11th person be Kadarius Toney right now.
yeah, he's
Cut him. Cut his ass today. Get him off the team today. Do your job.
they're not going to do that. But I don't know what they can do. The only thing I'm curious about now is if Mahomes brings that energy to Monday practice or Monday meetings, and the thought of that threat exists. They know that exists.
It doesn't matter though. They can't execute.
so
you can
crazy.
have that.
It
you
is
can have
so
that fiery. It's all well and good, but they can't execute when it matters the most.
Wild stuff for the Chiefs. It's been so long since it's been legitimately frustrating. I mean, that's again, this is what everybody and we have short memories in the NFL. This is what every team deals with every year. The Chiefs just haven't had to because they've had the crutch of Mahomes for so long now. They're going to have to figure it out. Can they beat any team that they play? Sure. The chances of doing it, are they as high as they used to be? Absolutely not. And they're in real trouble. I think if you polled 10 Chiefs fans right now and said, do you think they'll win the Super Bowl? You might get 2 or 3 that say yes. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, right? It means nothing, but I think it just sort of defines the vibe of it. If you want to give us a call, 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline, you can do it. We'll get to a couple of comments on our video stream, your comments as well on this before we switch over to some college basketball. Fire away, Chiefs fans. Let it all out here. Let it rip. We're your sounding board. We're here for you on Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Castor. We'll be right back.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back. The Von Miller play. So there's this big Twitter war going on that the screenshot originally showing Von Miller offsides was after the center snapped the ball. Before the center snapped the ball, I don't think he was offsides. So just a clarification there. From what I can gather on people arguing on Twitter right now about what the issues are. But look, people are going to pile on Mahomes for the tantrum. I get it. I like it, actually. I think it's not going to hurt anything, and it could possibly help. So I'm all for it. After the game and the post game, that's a little bit different. During the game, love it. After the game, probably not, but I get it. At some point, it's sort of like when, it's like when a coach gets on an official relentlessly over time. There's an intended result from that, and it's so that you might get the call the next time. There's a little gamesmanship, I think, there too. Albracht and Castor here, Sports Daily, still reacting to the Chiefs' loss to the Bills. A couple of comments here. Rick says, when talking about other receivers before the season, in reference to what Rick is saying here, how could he do it? They didn't have the cap room because of Chris Jones. Sure, they did. Chris Jones didn't end up costing them any more money at the end of the day. They could. That's why they didn't do a big deal for Chris Jones, is because they knew they couldn't. So I don't think his deal and his holdout was any impact on what they ultimately decided to do at wide receiver. They just decided that they were going to be good in the room with Kadarius Toney, who they invested draft capital in, and Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, all of which they invested, day 1 or 2 draft capital in. That's not enough. MBS wasn't enough. Zach says, I'd rather they hold open tryouts and play a high schooler than play Toney one more game. I think that's about where Tommy is on this. I still see some promising punt returns and stuff in Toney. He's not on the field much anyway. He's far down the list of contributors, but I don't think it's too bad because you design those specialty plays for him because he is good with the ball in his hands. And then that happens. And look, I still can't believe that he lined up offsides. I also can't believe that he didn't get checked at the line, which is the way I've always seen football be played too. Not anybody's fault but Toney, don't get me wrong. I just like the totality of everything that happened. I can't believe that it happened because it was such a perfect play at the perfect time in the perfect moment. And I'm just like, oh, you cannot, you got to be kidding me. I think I said out loud, I was like, Kelsey, look at the flag. I wish you could see the flag. Don't do it. Don't waste it. Because they threw the flag right at the beginning. We could all see it. We all see the flag thing come right at the beginning of the play, and you're just like, oh, no.
I think he thought that it was defensive offsides, and so I think he thought that it was.
He may not have seen the flag. I mean, that would have been a tough ask, 15, 20 yards down the field, but we could all see it.
I think he thought it was a free play, and that's why he was kind of like, hey, I might as well see what I can do.
Right when he did it, I think my first reaction to it was, oh, no, there's holding. I did not expect the offside thing. Okay, so here's what Carl Sheffer said. Ultimately, if they look for alignment advice, certainly we're going to give it to them. They're responsible. No warning is required, especially if they're lining up so far off sides, they're actually blocking our view of the ball. So we would give them warning if it's anywhere close. This one was beyond a warning. I think the other point they made in some of those comments was they didn't ask for a warning. A lot of the time on those checks, the receiver, of course, looks over and says, are we good? Again, this is all on Toney. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying I think some of the energy coming at Mahomes and Reed for being crybabies is a little bit misguided. One, they haven't had a chance to see the tape. They haven't had a chance to hear from the officials. So they're reacting to what happened in their world and their scope of things. In their world and in their scope of things, that never gets called because guys get checked at the line. So that's their frustration is based on that. They haven't even seen the play yet by the time they're talking about it or reacting to it on the sideline. So I just my point is there's just a little bit of misguided, negative crybaby energy at them. You got to realize like when and how they reacted to that. They'll see it today. They'll probably talk about it and be like, yep, that's on us. I would bet you that happens from Andy Reid today.
And obviously, I'm incredibly irritated about what happened in that situation, irritated at Kadarius Toney, all of that. But I think that in the collective outrage about this, there are a couple of things that are going to get lost in the shuffle that are not going to be discussed or talked about as much. Number one, keep in mind that if that play had stood and the touchdown stood, Josh Allen still had like a minute and 15 seconds left on the clock to go back and do whatever, right? Like that was still on the table. So that's number one. Number two is that even the wide receiver that I think everybody understands that has sort of separated himself from the rest of the pack in Rashee Rice, he had a fumble that the Bills like took over, right? Like he turned the ball over at one point in the game also. Like that happened. And then number three, and I mentioned it before the break, the Chiefs fell behind 14-0 to start the game. And I don't know what it's going to take to get Kansas City out of the gate better. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about how they weren't a second half team and they couldn't score in the second half. Now, all of a sudden, they can't score in the first half. You know, they can't get out to a lead. They're playing from behind. That's new in the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, those are like three different things that I think it's going to get lost in the shuffle of the Toney offsides and the warning or lack thereof and the touchdown being called back and all of that. It's all going to be lost in the shuffle of, you know, these other things that I think are just as, if not more important.
Who is the most notorious and famous big game, you know, football play? Like who comes to mind when you think of like, don't make this guy angry or don't give this guy ammo or don't count this guy out? And it's Tom Brady. Right.
Brady.
Is
Aaron Rodgers is up there.
Remember, but even more than Rodgers, think about Brady over the legacy of the Patriots and how many times they were written off prematurely in individual seasons and, you know, toward the end there, obviously bigger picture. But even in those individual seasons, are the Patriots done? Is Tom Brady done? Are they? Nobody used that. And I would argue that the next best don't motivate this guy since Brady is Mahomes. I think the point of this morning is there's still 4 games left in the regular season. There's still the postseason. I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite, especially in the AFC. I just don't think at any point, unless there's significant injury, and injuries played a part yesterday too, for sure. I just want to remember that all of these things happening is just the Chiefs being more human than they've been in the past.
Yeah,
they have been immune to this stuff for years. They're not now, but that doesn't mean that, and that's why like the reaction on the sideline to me, it's like, like, could that be an unlocking, even if it's just for Mahomes and Kelsey, who are 2 big gamers like that? Like, even if it's just those 2 that say, you know what, street ball, rest of the season, we're playing street ball. Let's go.
But look, here's the problem with what you just said. Mahomes, I mean, I agree with you. Like, outside of Brady right now, Mahomes is that guy that when you make him mad, you know, he's going to, blow you apart. The issue is that the rest of the team, he still has to live with, right? Like, outside of Travis Kelce.
Totally.
So what more can he do? Like, he could be the most super
he can
player
throw the ball better because he had lots of bad throws yesterday.
You want him to go catch the ball himself? You want him to throw it and then run and catch it himself? Like, there's only so much that Patrick Mahomes can do. And my issue with where things are at right now, like, I don't remember. I think the last time I was maybe this mad about a Chiefs team was the year that their offensive line was terrible and Mahomes was getting killed and was running his life game in and game out. And I remember then saying, they're number one, going to get him killed. But number 2, they are wasting a year of his prime. And that's the way I feel right now too, in a different way. They are wasting a year of like some of the best performance and production that Patrick Mahomes can have.
But because they don't win a Super Bowl to say they're wasting, when I said like, and like when I say like it's not entitled isn't the right word, but it's almost like when you have this greatness, you forget what
You have
normal
expectations.
is like.
No, you have
It's not
based on the way the team has
wasting.
performed.
It's not wasting
Sure it
a
is.
year. It's not like otherwise every
What is
year
the
every
goal
team
other than
doesn't
playing-
win a Super Bowl is
But what is
wasting
the-
a year.
What is the goal and expectation every single year? It's to win a Super Bowl. You think it wasn't that way with Tom Brady and the dynasty that the Patriots had? They didn't win it every year, no, but that was the expectation. Certainly,
They had to
every single
rebuild
year.
that roster like 5 different times.
And they did. They did multiple
Not
times. and they
every
were still-
single season. Like it takes time to rebuild a roster. Like you can't, like when you have great players and you have to lose them, you have to replace them. That takes time. Like otherwise, the Patriots would have won the Super Bowl every year and not, every other year, every 3 years or whatever it was. Like it's not a waste to have to rebuild the roster. It's not a waste to have to try and find a way to replace Tyreek Hill. It's not a waste to, need to invest in an offensive line so other places may suffer.
To take it a step further, though, when we're looking at specifically the wide receiver room, we know the way that Brett Veach prefers to build that wide receiver room. And look, I've got a lot of respect for Brett Veach. He's the architect of 2 Super Bowl championship teams. I've got a lot of respect for him as the general manager. But the way that he's managed this wide receiver room has been bad. I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's been flat out bad. Bad decisions. Outside of Rashee Rice, bad drafting. Bad trades, bringing in Kadarius Toney, bad signings with MVS. It's been bad. And the problem that I have, and the reason why I don't have a whole lot of optimism for this specifically, is because Brett Veach looked at the wide receiver room before the year and said, yeah, we're good with that. He looked at the wide receiver room before the trade deadline and said, yeah, we're good with that. So in what world do we expect him to look at it after this season and say, you know what, we probably need to make some changes? I don't have, maybe he will, but I don't have a whole lot of optimism that he's actually going to do that.
Well, MVS's bad contract. That takes time to negotiate, but the decisions he made at wide receiver last year were good enough, right? So I guess you can take that as your confidence. And was he the drafter of Tyreek Hill, or was Dorsey? I don't know who the evaluator on Tyreek Hill was. Yeah. But last year's the easy answer on that. What he thought was good enough in the wide receiver room last year was good enough. They won a Super Bowl, right? So he didn't do a good job with the wide receiver room. I screamed all off season they needed a wide receiver. I don't want to defend any of that. Like they needed to do something better. I said that all off season long. They were restricted in how they could do that. They had to spend first-round picks on the defensive line. They absolutely had to fix the offensive line. Those were bigger priorities. I still think they're bigger priorities. This is just about as bad as you can say. Okay, Earl, hang with us. Want to give you a chance to chime in. Don't want to cut you short. So, Earl, hang through the break here. We'll finish up the hour with Chiefs Talks. We'll get to some more comments and some calls. We'll do that on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We got to get in a quick break here. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour with more Chiefs next on Sports Daily.
$97.5 and 1240 KFH.
This holiday season, all your wishes are coming true on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official partner of KFH. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, and the app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including over-unders. Check out the spreads and the player props and more. I'm Ted the Sports Ed. Visit FanDuel.com/Ted and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame money line wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Do you remember the feeling you'd get as a small child when Christmas was coming? That thrill of excitement building in the deepest part of your soul, knowing anything and everything was possible. From flying reindeer to Santa leaping down your chimney to bring you the most wonderful toy in the world. Unfortunately, sometimes as adults, it seems as if it's almost impossible to recapture those warm, tingling childhood memories. But this year can be different. You see, at Mike Seltzer Jewelers, 2929 North Rock Road in Comatera Center, the magic of Christmas awaits you. Step into our store and experience an old-fashioned Christmas, complete with familiar carols, a smiling staff, ready and eager to help you choose a gift from among the enormous selection of stunning jewelry, free gift wrapping, and best of all, 50% off almost everything in the store. That's right. With 50% off, you'll be able to afford the kind of gifts that bring Christmas magic with them for you and for the one whose face will light up on Christmas morning. Mike Seltzer Jewelers, where the magic of Christmas awaits you, with 50% off now through December 24th.
It's the holiday season, and Taco Bell is giving away free Christmas cash. Do you want to win? Listen daily for the Taco Bell weekly location and join us for your chance to win. One lucky drive-through vehicle chosen randomly will win $124 in Christmas cash. Are you the lucky one? Drive through and see if you win. Just Taco Bell's way of saying thank you and happy holidays. No purchase necessary. See store for details.
This is Evan Lease with David Lease Plumbing, wishing you a joyous and blessed Christmas season. Whether your water heater begins to leak when family arrives in town, your garbage disposal stops working when cleaning the refrigerator of leftovers, or your child decided to flush a brand new toy down your toilet, we're happy to help. Give David Lease Plumbing a call at 945-0117 to schedule a service call. Merry Christmas from our family to yours. May your homes be filled with warmth, laughter, and the true meaning of Christmas.
Finding the bulb that doesn't work on your Christmas tree can drive you crazy, right? The same is true with electrical problems around your home or business. Save the headache, time, and trouble. Just call Mr. Electric. They show up on time, provide the price up front, and even do a safety check, making sure everything is just right. No matter the time of day, Mr. Electric is there for you and your family. Residential or commercial, Mr. Electric has the power to make things better. Call now, 316-361-5200. Online at MrElectricWichita.com.
Turnpike Troubadours are coming to Wichita Friday, May 3rd at Intrust Bank Arena.
I always kept the best for you.
Turnpike Troubadours with Trampled by Turtles and the Red Clay Strings.
That mean old sun better rise up soon.
Tickets are available through selectaseat.com and the Arena box office.
Mama warned you.
Don't miss Turnpike Troubadours with Trampled by Turtles and the Red Clay Strings. Friday, May 3rd at Intrust Bank Arena. Produced by Mammoth.
People who come to Cricket stay with Cricket, just like our customer, Jaron.
I'm the singer and guitarist in a band, and I use my Cricket phone for everything. It's basically like another band member.
Don't miss a single beat. Switch today and get a free Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Real customer paid for testimonial. Must bring your number to Cricket on up to a $60 a month voice plan, depending on device. Select models only while supplies last. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Cricket 5G requires a compatible device and is not available everywhere. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See store for details.
Save big every day during Lowe's 25 Days of Deals. Save $100 on select master-built smokers for the grill enthusiast in your life. Plus, get up to 55% off select smart home gifts for everyone on your list. Order eligible in-stock items by 2 p.m. to get same-day delivery. Lowe's knows deals every day. Valid through 12/13 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Delivery by 8 p.m. Subject to driver availability. Fees vary based on purchase. Additional terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Everybody venting a little bit about that Chiefs loss to Buffalo yesterday. Let's hear from Earl. Earl, one of our great Chiefs callers. Earl, I'm curious to know how you're feeling this morning.
Well, let me start this with this, and it's an old school one, but, you know, I was always asked what's the difference between a Chiefs fan and a puppy. At some point, the puppy quits whining. So let's keep all that in mind as we think of what occurred here. Look, man, a great philosopher once said, man, that rear view mirror on your car is so small because those things in the rear view are small, and the windshield is huge. So it's all still in front of us. Given everything that has occurred, we still can go toe-to-toe with the best of them. But here's the thing. Hopefully, and this is what I'm hoping for, after a team wins a Super Bowl in the past few years, it's been very difficult on them to regain focus. They're on talk shows. Everybody's asking more time out of them for other things. So they come into the next season not quite as focused as they had been because, there are a lot of hands on their time in the offseason. So the Chiefs may have fallen into that little trap there. And before, when I talked about Bieniemy being gone, the iron fist, right? So the focus has not been sharp, not been laser sharp at all, and it shows with these stupid little mistakes. So I'd say this. Mahomes going off the way he did is hopefully enough to get that whole locker room laser focused on the task ahead, because it's still all in the front windshield there. Everything is still in front of us, still can happen. Yes, you can go on the road. Chiefs are good on the road. For the longest time, we had lost, 7 playoff games at Arrowhead in a row, So the road, we can handle the road. But there's this one little thing, and I don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. There's a guy at you guys' radio station who changed from being a Raiders fan to a Chiefs fan. When that occurred, all of these things started happening even tenfold. So, Bob, go back to your Raiders, man, and leave our Chiefs alone.
I didn't know that happened. We'll have to look into that. I wasn't aware of that.
He jumped the shark, couldn't handle it anymore. But as soon as he did, we've lost all these games. 4 out of the last 6?
Take it. Yeah, you're gonna have to take that to task. Earl, good call. Or you can hear the music there. Great call, because I agree with you. It's there. And I think the other part of the reason it's there is I just don't think there's anybody else out there that's insurmountable. The closest thing we have is the Niners, and they lost 3 in a row this year. So we'll see. There's the thing is, too, the NFL is very much a what have you done for me lately, like a last 4 weeks kind of a league. There's still 4 weeks left in the regular season. We still got a long way to go before we even get to the playoffs. And if quarterbacks keep dropping like flies, who knows what's going to happen in this league? We'll talk about the rest of the NFL on the other side. Also some college hoops. Your calls on the IHOP hotline. Appreciate it, Earl. We'll be right back with hour number 2 right after this.
NFL Love Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Kevin Harlan here from Westwood One, inviting you to join me and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner every Monday this season. It's Westwood One's 45th year of bringing you primetime NFL games, and the schedule is packed with great matchups. Plus, you'll hear Rich Eisen from the studios with interviews and the latest news around the NFL. Don't miss any of the action every week on Monday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at westwoodonesports.com.
Screeching brakes? Safer stops start with Duralast. New Duralast brake pads and rotors provide longer life and more stopping power when replaced together. Duralast brake pads have reduced noise and corrosion resistance with a limited lifetime warranty. Duralast rotors are designed for quiet, safe stops and meet or exceed the performance of the original rotors on your vehicle. Find Duralast only at America's #1 brake destination, AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. It's never been easier to join BetMGM's new and improved app. Sign up using code BUZZER and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and the best daily promotions in the business. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. Football is here. So gear up with the BetMGM app and tap into greater thrills all season long. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus to wager. Kansas only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire in 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
I got a letter from Santa?
Dear Renee, I am looking forward to visiting your house again Christmas Eve. I was wondering if you could leave me another one of those delicious Oreo candy cane shakes again. Rudolph thinks the candy cane sprinkles are gourmet reindeer food. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Spangles should make this their new holiday dessert.
Nothing says Christmas like candy canes and cookies. Spangle's new Oreo candy cane shake.
Yes, it's Santa approved. Oh, ho, 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 ho. It's a holiday deal from Spangles.
Come into Spangles for our gift card deal. Pick up yours today. Now through December 24th, purchase a $50 Spangles gift card and get a $20 Spangles gift card for free. That's right, a free $20 gift card for every $50 card you buy. December 8th through the 24th. Spangles, helping your holiday dollars go farther.
Happy holidays. Stop by Spangles today.
The holidays come but once a year, and Masterforce is here to spread some cheer with drivers and drills and blades and bits. From sanders and saws to power tool kits, Menards has the value and savings, of course. Shop tools and accessories from Masterforce. Find great stocking stuffers and gifts at Menards. Plus, don't forget about our gift cards. Hurry now for deals on Masterforce. Available at Menards, of course.
Season's greetings to you all from Menards.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with minimum of a 2-entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Pro football yesterday at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. The Chiefs hosting the Buffalo Bills. Late in the game, the Chiefs trailing looked like they had the go-ahead touchdown. Mitch Holtis with the call on 98.7 and 1330 KNSS.
Selling out, flag on the play, might be a free one. They've got Kelsey at the 30, Kelsey 25, angling back, 20, now he's going to lateral it back at the 15-yard line. It's Tony, 10, 5, touchdown, Kansas City. They mess around and practice with this all the time. It's going to go with a 49-yard touchdown. Kelsey, the old University of Cincinnati quarterback.
Number 19, offense, lined up in the neutral zone, 5-yard penalty. Second down.
Offsides by the offense, lined up in the neutral zone.
Who was it on?
On Kadarius.
Oh, my goodness.
Chiefs fall 20-17. I'm Ted the Sports Head.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Oh my God, that Mitch Holtis call was incredible. I hadn't heard that yet. That was so good. That was perfect. I was perfectly called on a play like that. Because that was what everybody felt. So excited, so awesome. What a great play. You knew they'd been working on it for a long time. And then wait, what? They said, what? You can call offsides on the offense? Wait, I'm sorry. What? Who was that on? What are we doing here? Was that Juwan Taylor again lining up with the? Oh, no. It was the wide receiver. Really? That was awesome. That was awesome. All right, Max, do we have Shreyas on the line here? All right, let's get to Shreyas Laddha. We're going to start our college basketball talk with the Jayhawks and a big win over the Tigers, emotionally speaking, of the three teams we played, probably the biggest game of the weekend. Here's Shreyas Laddha. Shreyas, welcome into Sports Daily here on a Monday. How are you, man?
Good. How are you guys?
We're good. Is 9 points good enough for you? I expected a bigger win. I'm not sure it is. I know it was emotional, and they looked like it was going to be more than that at times. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they won. Don't get me wrong, but it felt like it should be more than that.
I think so. I mean, they started off pretty ice cold, and, Missouri, like the Dennis Gates said, they were the better team for 14 minutes. And then things slowly started to fall in Kansas's place once the defense picked up and Missouri stopped making some crazy threes. I think just something with this team that I've noticed is these really big spreads, they're rarely going to cover it because you need to shoot a lot of threes to, I think, cover these spreads. So I don't know if you guys have seen like the 30-point spreads they've had against some lesser teams and this and that. They have not covered a single one of those. Just because they don't shoot the amount of threes that you need them to shoot, I think, for them to cover these big spreads. So I think it was like 13 coming into the game, and I was like, it could be, I was like 50-50 in the sense they could cover the spread. They couldn't. But I think they did what they should have done. They probably could have done it in a prettier way, and they probably could have been better at different points. But, they beat Missouri for the third straight time since the resumption of the border battle, border showdown, border war, whatever you want to call it. And, Kansas has one loss in the season, and that was a number 4 Marquette team. So far, so good for Bill Self and his squad.
Sharice, at one point in the first half, the Jayhawks fell down by 9 points. And it really looked like Missouri came into Allen Fieldhouse. They were ready for the atmosphere, ready for the environment early on. What do you attribute the early struggles in that game on Saturday to? Do you think it was just Missouri hitting some shots and they were more poised? Or do you think there was something else going on with Kansas that led to that early deficit?
Well, I think Missouri did an excellent job of making KU play offense differently. If you guys saw, they were double and triple channeling Hunter Dickinson, which basically said they told Kansas almost like, okay, well, you're not going to beat us with Hunter Dickinson, so you better figure out your offense some other way. And so Kansas had to play through its guards offensively, I think, early on a little bit. And I think there was an adjustment there. And, Missouri did an excellent job of keeping Hunter out of his spots, especially in the first half. I mean, he had 2 points on 2 shots. No team has done as good a job against Hunter as anybody, as Missouri's done, I think, in the country. And he still finished with a double-double at 13 points and 16 rebounds, which tells you how good he is. But, I think that was the big thing. I think a little bit it was Missouri was making some really tough threes early on that I think Kansas just couldn't quite answer. So I think that allowed them to get to a bigger lead, a lead in the game. And I think it's interesting to kind of see just how this Kansas team reacted, I think, to this Missouri defense and how they adjusted and, adjusted to different ways. Like I know late in the game, they had KJ Adams bring up the ball, and I wrote a whole story about how his ball handling skills, like they trust him to bring up the ball, and he showed it off there, and it led to a quick assist for Elmarco Jackson. So it's been interesting to see, how teams that guarded Hunter and Kansas as a whole, and how it's forcing Bill Self and his coaching staff to get creative against different teams.
Well, you brought up KJ Adams, and I do want to get to him, but before we do that, DeJuan Harris again. He's 5 assists to 4 turnovers. He's not scoring. What's going on there? Like what's going on with DeJuan Harris, who has been the steadying force for this team for 3 years now? He's just not look the same for him. And KJ Adams has picked it up, but I mean, maybe he's picked it up a little bit to pick up some of that slack. What's going on with Harris, and what is it that he needs to do to get back to the DeJuan Harris we've seen for a couple of years now?
I think maybe it's just an adjustment to the fact that this team is so differently built compared to teams of the past that he's been on. There's a lot of different guys that can do a lot of different things. And I mean, I don't think he was necessarily bad against Missouri. I mean, he had 8 points on 6 shots, 5 assists. I mean, yeah, he had some turnovers, but, I think you'd take a 3 of 6 night from DeJuan Harris from what he hasn't done, I think, the rest of the year. I mean, he had a decent game against, I think, the team before Missouri. I'm blanking out. Kansas City, sorry. And he took some shots there. But, I mean, you want him to take a little more, but I think I'd take 6 shots, for DeJuan, because he hasn't really shot the ball much at all. And, I mean, the offensive urgency, I feel like, hasn't really come on that end from Kansas in the sense that they need the point guard like DeJuan or whoever to score. But I think for Kansas to reach its full potential, they need DeJuan and Elmarco to kind of figure out their offensive struggles and issues. And that means DeJuan needs to be aggressive to taking it to the rim and I think take care of the ball a little better than he has so far this season. But I don't feel like, the ball handling, the turnovers and stuff like that, it doesn't feel like, at least to me, a back-breaking thing, at least right now. I think for me, the thing that I've noticed is when Dewan is completely, not willing to shoot the ball or take it to the basket or whatever, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. And in that turn, that's where KJ Adams has stepped up and done a tremendous job last 3 games in upping his own offensive production and taking, letting the defense that is sagged off, especially as much as Missouri did, and making them pay.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned a few minutes ago about Missouri doing a really good job on Hunter Dickinson. And, you look at his final stat line, 13 points, 16 rebounds, but it was kind of a quiet 13 and 16, I thought. Do you think that there are things that Missouri did against Hunter Dickinson that other teams, like especially once KU gets into Big 12 play, that these Big 12 opponents can take from and utilize that as, a way to combat what Hunter Dickinson brings to the table?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they can limit his thing. Limit his success, but we saw in the second half, he still ended up getting 13 points, 16 rebounds after scoring 2 points and 2 shots or 4. So Kansas adjusted. It's really, really fascinating how the fact of the matter is that, this Kansas team is going to go as far as Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson lead them. And if one or the two is shut out completely, it becomes a lot harder for Kansas to win. And I'd say come March, deep tournament time, Big 12 tournament time, that could be an issue. But I think having the chance to go against the Missouri team that did such a great job against Hunter Dickinson is a great thing for KU, and it's probably a great thing for the Big 12 opponents because they can look at that, adjust their scheme accordingly against Hunter. But more importantly, it also gave KU some great tape on what they need to do when Hunter is not the primary option on offense.
So back to KJ Adams real quick. Shreyas Latta joining us, beat reporter for KU Hoops, KU Football at the KC Star. You can follow him on social media at SHRE98. KJ Adams it seems to be reaching a new level offensively. I wonder how much is still there, you think? Have they given any indication on that? Because his role is expanding offensively, and he's been so efficient offensively, it makes me wonder, is there more there? Could they make him, as a plan, more featured in the offense and continue to grow his role in that way to combat some of the, if Dickinson offensively isn't, what he can be, or McCullough has a 4 for 15 shooting night as he did. To me, he's so clearly the third option. And I don't know that we expected that, but it looks good while they're doing it.
To be honest with you, I kind of expected it after, the dismissal of Arteri Morris, because who else was going to be the third offensive option? I guess maybe if Marshall had kind of figured out taken a bigger leap than I expected this early on. He was the third guy last year too, right? I'd say. So I think it's just a continuation of his growth on the offensive end from last year. And I've been very high on KJ Adams. I think he's an NBA player. I think if he can shoot a jump shot, he's going to be in the NBA for a very long time because he does everything else really, really well. Obviously his rebounding has not been as good as you hoped this season, but I think the adjustment from playing against, bigger and tougher opponents where you're boxing them out and letting your teammates get rebounds to being, put on a guy who's a 4-man who might not be the best rebounder has, I think, hurt his numbers a little bit. But offensively, he's going through a true, incredibly great stretch. I think he's number one and he's at career high in assist rate, true shooting percentage, effective field goal percentage, offensive rating, like a bunch of different things, according to Ken Palm. And he's looked so good. I'm really intrigued to see if he will feel a little more comfortable to take a step back and take those 15-foot jumpers instead of just doing the floater, because it seems like the floater's become a very nice weapon of his. But I think the next step for him is just feeling comfortable for the mid-range, right? Because he does a tremendous job switching on defense. He's so good on that end. He's a good facilitator. He finds a way to get the ball to the right person more often than not. I've always been very impressed with that. I think he could have a bigger offensive load, especially because, Kevin, Self has said Kevin doesn't expect Kevin to keep up this crazy offensive start. So maybe Kevin's numbers, and usage drops a little bit, and that's where KJ Adams comes in and helps fill in the gaps.
You mentioned the struggles that the Jayhawks have had in covering these large spreads throughout the season, and really attributing that to the three-point shooting and the struggles they've had there. Nick Timberlake, still really isn't there. He did have a made three-pointer on Saturday, but you kind of have to take the good with the bad a little bit with Nick Timberlake. Do you think that as this season rolls on, and especially getting into conference play, this lack of successful three-point shooting is going to come back to bite the Jayhawks?
I think so. I mean, I think I wrote about it a couple of days ago, like about mailbag. I think it's a concerning trend to me that they are shooting a 301st. I think this was a couple of days ago, 301 number in three-point rate overall, which is kind of nuts. That's like the lowest in Delft's era by almost 150, 100 plus 150 point, ranking spots. So, people talk about the fact that their percentage is pretty good. And to me, that doesn't really mean anything because you need to watch the games. And I think, if you watch the games, you can clearly see they're not shooting the three-point ball, and they win games based on defense and taking selective shots when they come. And, it's a little bit of a mirage. If you can't shoot the three-point shot, you're not going to shoot it a lot. And if you're not going to shoot it a lot, your three-point rate's not going to be that high. But when you do take it, ideally you're making it more often than not because they're more selective about the shots they're taking, right? So that's what, the percentage just kind of said to us so far. I think it's 100% in the cards for this team for them to be upset in March or in the Big 12 tournament because some other team got really hot and they couldn't keep up because a guy like Nick Timberlake hasn't quite figured it out by then or didn't figure out at all. I think that is in the cards, and that and offensive rebounding rate is another big thing. I think they're number 301 or they're really low on that end. It's the lowest rate ever for a Bill Self team by quite a bit. And that's a bit concerning as well. I think those two things are the things that worry me the most about this team, but I think this defense is going to give them a chance to win a lot of games and go and make a deep tournament run. And if they can get the offense going from the inside out and make some timely three-pointers, who knows? They 100% can win a title. I think it's just going to be a little bit of luck of the draw on that end and hoping you don't run into a team that can go bombs away from three and put you out of the tournament early.
Villanova. All right, Trias, we will have a while before we play again, so plenty of opportunities for people to check out your work at the KC Star. You can follow Trias at SHRE98. We appreciate the visit. Let's do it again next week.
Yeah, appreciate having me, guys. Great talk to y'all.
There goes Trias Latta. Check out his work online. It'll be a while before we get another KU game. And we will talk to Trias again next week. All right, on the way out, let's do a giveaway here. So we're going to do movie tickets to Wonka, and this will be at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square just a few days away from now on December 14th, a special sneak peek of the new musical starring Timothée Chalamet at 7 o'clock. Wonka. Right now, pair of tickets to the first caller on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Max will get you taken care of. During the break, we'll be back. More Sports Daily. We'll talk a little Shockers, little K-State hoops when we return.
participating U.S. Wendy's. Vanilla Frosty is temporarily unavailable.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Thanks to Shreyas Lotta for talking a little Jayhawks hoops with us. If you missed any of that, you can go back and listen on kfhradio.com. You can say hello to Lucy on our video stream. If you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch, she wants to be on the show, and we're not going to deny her. That's Tommy's sweet puppy that's sitting right there licking the microphone. Hi, Lucy. Thanks for tuning in on the video streams, by the way.
Yeah, I figured that, if I have to have my face on camera, the best way to counter that is like a cute dog. So, yeah, that's what we're doing.
So Lucy's here with us, too. Max producing for us. We appreciate you tuning in, listening in on KFH here locally on the app. I know we have listeners in other parts of the country. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's move on to some Shocker and some K-State hoops here, Tommy. For Wichita State, we'll start there. The Intrust Bank Arena game. I've been told and heard from lots of people that wasn't the best turnout. I think playing San Diego State is a part of that, right? Like that's a little harder to get motivated for San Diego State, for South Dakota State. And then aside from that, what I'm more concerned with is, safe to say that was the most disappointing performance of the year for the Shockers. I think for me it was. That was a game they should have won, let alone lose by 10. That's a tough one. And now we're going to have to, for the first time, really see this team respond to some adversity because it becomes 2 losses in a row at the same time.
Yeah, I think that you're right when you say it's probably the most disappointing. Actually, definitely, I think is the most disappointing game so far of the season for Wichita State. I've seen it multiple times. It's difficult, I think, for the Shockers to play in that arena. Not that it's bad. It's not a bad venue at all, but you're going 10 minutes away from your home arena to play somewhere else. And they've kind of had varying levels of success over the years playing that Intrust game. I think some of the attendance you can chalk up to the quality of opponent that was scheduled to play at that location. There have been years where it's been Wichita State and Kansas State at Intrust Bank Arena, and that's drawn a big crowd. There have been some other, Oklahoma State, I think, has drawn well also. This one, South Dakota State, that's tough to draw people to downtown Wichita for that kind of game. So, I've got concerns just like you do. It's difficult, I think, for that team to play in that arena, in that venue, at that location against that opponent. So you've got to shake it off. I know that this is really, I think, the first time that we saw kind of a letdown game from Wichita State this season. And the big question is going to be, how do they bounce back from that?
Certainly. And we'll have to see it. The problem is their opponent outside of, they've got a lot of time, this good portion of the schedule to have it happen because you get a week off. All 3 of the teams, by the way, KU, Wichita State, K-State, get a week off here, basically. But now you get Southern Illinois at home to bounce back. They need to respond there because after that it's K-State, KU, then it's conference play. So there's not a lot of time left, right, to do it. The Intrust game is good because it's the way that you can get big time opponents to come into Wichita.
Right.
It just so happens that for whatever reason, they didn't have the opportunity to do that this year. So it becomes South Dakota State. And you're like, nah. But when it's Oklahoma State or Oklahoma or Kansas State, like those are good games.
I sent you the article the other day from Taylor Eldridge. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not, but about how the maneuvering that was done by Wichita State to turn that from a home game to a neutral site game when it comes to the net rankings and when you're, looking at maybe being a team that, has aspirations for an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. It is important if you can go there and you can win against an opponent that is lower than you in the KenPom, and Wichita State wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to do it. I think most of the time you're trying to get somebody that's a big-time opponent to come see you, right? It's just like playing all the games in Kansas City and all those things instead of home. Like, that's great. I love that they do the Intrust game. I love that they do the downtown game. It's going to take a little time to build that momentum back up, just like it is at Charles Koch Arena. That's just the reality of it.
But I think they're having a hard enough time right now, I think. My last note on this, a hard enough time driving attendance at Coke Arena.
They are.
So if you're working on that,
These decisions are made.
Moving,
These decisions are made before and after. I mean, it's
moving that away from Coke Arena when you're still trying to build that up. Yeah, I get it. I understand these things are planned well in advance, but that was disappointing. Not only the outcome, but just the lack of attendance. I saw pictures, and there were empty seats everywhere, and that's disappointing.
It all comes with winning, right? All of these things come with winning, and they didn't play particularly well in the game. In fact, they didn't play well at all. That was, you don't want to give up 79 points to South Dakota State. Let's start there. Like, you don't want them to shoot the ball that well and have that kind of a performance offensively. That's not going to be good for Wichita State. The bigs didn't do much. That's interesting. I have not had a chance to go through and listen to what Paul Mills had to say after the game. I thought they would, rebound a little more dominantly in this game than they did. They didn't. It wasn't an egregious turnover game, right? Either. It's kind of a strange one. They shot free throws okay. They didn't shoot threes well, which they just kind of. That's not really their thing, but it wasn't bad, right? It was not as good in the first half, and then they came out in the second half and they shot more than 50%. I mean, Tommy, when you look at this game and you look at it on paper, it's like, well, wait a minute. What, they won the rebounding battle. They didn't turn it over too much. They shot 40% from three, but they didn't shoot well from anywhere else. It's just kind of a weird one. And I'm excited to go in and listen to all of what Paul Mills had to say about it, and I'll do that today. It's a strange one. It's a strange one for sure. And I don't quite know what to take away from it. Other than let's see what they do in the next one.
Well, again, it's really dangerous, I think, to invoke the transitive property. And I know you do that all the time in sports, and that's not always a clear indicator of, how things go. But remember, South Dakota State played Kansas State earlier this season, and the Wildcats beat South Dakota State by 23 points, right? So, that you can go back and look at that a little bit. And I remember us talking about South Dakota State at that time when they were getting ready to play Kansas State. And I remember talking about Zach Mayo, who was the, big time shooter for South Dakota State. He had a good game against Wichita State over the weekend. 25 points for him inside Intrust Bank Arena. I think Wichita State had a difficult time containing him. But again, I think what is hard is when you look at the breakdown of the stats in this game, I'm kind of with you. There's really nothing that stands out as egregious as you point at that as that's the reason by which
the bigs didn't play well.
Lost the game.
The bigs didn't play well offensively. I wonder, and I don't know this as fact. It was too early in the season still. It makes me wonder, are they going to have the bigs play well offensively? Does that have to be a part of the offense?
I think so. I think
I know Paul Mills wants it to be. Right. And so that's sort of what I guess, because, again, it was a strange one, because as you look at it in the aftermath, it's like, well, what happened? And I don't even know what necessarily happened, but we're going to, the biggest thing, and again, Wichita State this year, unless something magical happens over their next 3 games, they were not going to be an at-large team this year. Yeah. That is just so. I mean, they would have to lose 1 or 2 conference games and that's it, or win one of these. To me, that's never really been on the table here. Now, they had played better, and I think more encouraging than a lot of people thought, especially when you knew they didn't have 2 of their what we thought would be key pieces due to eligibility issues. But I still am sort of just in this mode of, where will this team be and where can it be when you get to the conference slate? And I still don't think we know the answer. I think we were more encouraged before Saturday, and now we sort of have to take this step back again here.
Right.
Because then, and we don't, you don't have good losses and all that, but even the Missouri game, you're like, man, they easily could have won that game. Right. So, okay, we'll take that. This one, it's just like, what is that? Now we'll see again with K-State, because the Wildcats look great. They look good.
Can I, real quick, before we go to the Wildcats, Can I just mention the elephant in the room very quickly about this game on Saturday night? The fact that it wasn't televised, and I understand all the different things that played into it, but it wasn't an ESPN Plus game. You couldn't watch it. Now, I listened to a good majority of it with Mike Kennedy, and that was awesome. But it makes it really hard on a Monday to try to evaluate what happened when it wasn't like I wasn't at the game. I couldn't watch it. It wasn't like I could break down and say, okay, well, that was why. I mean, you look at the stat line, and the Bigs didn't play well, right? But like, that's crazy. And hopefully that doesn't happen moving forward. I know the rest of the season is good to go, but I was reading, I think it was Taylor Eldridge again, an article about why the game was not televised. And I'm like, man, like that can't happen. It's a Saturday night when there's no college football on. You know, like I'm watching the Heisman ceremony and I'm like, man, it'd be great to watch some Wichita State basketball tonight, not televised. And I'm sure that the fan base probably, you know, not very thrilled about that either. So hopefully that doesn't happen moving forward.
Yeah, and I was at a company Christmas party of it, so all I can do, that's why I say I can't wait to get in and dig in and listen in to what Paul Mills had to say after the game, because I have no idea. All I can do is look at what happened, because I'm with you. I was following along on, you know, at a company Christmas party on the phone, just looking at it like an updating, you know, games. I'm like, what is going on here? So we'll get into that. K-State, we did have a chance to get a look at, to follow along a little bit more, had some highlights and those kinds of things. I think the big thing for the Wildcats, Tommy, and not that LSU's a juggernaut this year by any means, they're talented. It was sort of an emotional, like what sort of emotional bounce back quality is possible in this game? After everything that happened last week with Naquan Tomlin, after you came out of just a really good win against Villanova, there was none. They came out, they handled their business. Tyler Perry did not play particularly well, and they still found a way to win. Cam Carter continues to be what I don't know that any of us expected to be, which is this amazing revelation in his expanded role. Kaluma continues now to sort of, I think what we'll see over the years, Kaluma actually be the guy, right? Not Tyler Perry. And Tyler Perry becomes more of a secondary piece who does things like he did against Villanova, right? So I am very encouraged. I think they're way ahead of schedule, honestly, because they do have talented young players that are going to continue to contribute for this team. I did not think they would be at this point this year, Tommy, and they are. And I think they can and will continue to get better. And I think middle of the pack in the Big 12 is absolutely in play with a chance to beat certain really good teams at various points in the conference season.
Everything was pointing towards a potential letdown for Kansas State with the week that they had with Naquan Tomlin and all of that. And then even beyond that, a 1-point win against Villanova. This team has lived in overtime. I think everything was building towards a letdown. Like, we're exhausted emotionally, we're exhausted mentally, we're exhausted physically. We have put in so much energy to win these games in overtime. We had a big 1-point win against Villanova last week. And then you add in all the drama on campus. It was building to that point. And then all the Wildcats did, they just went out there and extinguished LSU. And it was a decisive win. They looked really good. They shot the ball good, almost 50% from the field. They won the rebounding battle, looked really good there. I think really the only glaring negative, they turned the ball over too much, 17 turnovers. That's something that, you know, they've got to get cleaned up. But overall, I mean, it was a pretty resounding victory, I think, when the Wildcats needed it the most. And again, that's a testament to Jerome Tang and the kind of coach that he is.
Yeah, I do too. And again, great leader. There's no question about that. He's got that down pat. And so hopefully, you know, I think if you're a K-State fan, unless you're a K-State hater, and I know there's lots of them there with KU fans, but just like if you're a K-State fan or a neutral observer, you hope that success sort of softens the blow of the Naquan Tomlin situation and everything, and the anger and the vitriol over how that all played out and all of these things can sort of ease into the back of the mind with some success on the court. And then, of course, we have to see where Naquan Tomlin ends up playing basketball, assuming he's going to do that, which I would assume he would do. The question that I think I mean, certainly I do, and I assume you do too, Tommy, get asked all the time is, would Kansas take Naquan Tomlin? And I think the answer is absolutely. I think that they would.
Yes,
I think that
definitely a
Kansas
yes.
needs depth. It needs depth, certainly. I think any depth is good for Kansas right now. I think, is it like is Naquan Tomlin going to step in there and solve their 3-point shooting problems? Absolutely not. Is he going to could he step in and help them, become and continue to be and develop into the best defensive team in the country and give them another dynamic creator? Absolutely he could. Is he and would he become one of their, 5 best players? Absolutely he would. So, we'll see how that plays out. And again, I'm not saying that they've had conversations. I don't even know where that all stands with Tomlin's status right now. Right now, as far as we know, his main focus is getting graduated, which he should do this week. Finals are this week in college, I believe. I know they are at Wichita State. I assume they are everywhere. So, he's going to get some resolution and hopefully a graduation here pretty quick. And then I would imagine pretty quickly he'll be able to go finish out his playing career before he ultimately goes to the NBA, which was on the table anyway, remember. That was a part of, this offseason oddness with him, is that he's absolutely an NBA prospect. So if I'm an NBA prospect, KU makes a lot of sense. Would he do that to, Jerome Tang and his teammates? I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that part of it because there'll be a lot of teams that'll come calling. So we'll see. But boy, is it going to be a juicy storyline if that happens. Like, whew.
I think any team that is maybe one piece away from legitimately feeling like they can compete for a national championship ought to be calling Naquan Tomlin, because you're basically getting him as a rental, right? Like a 3-month rental through your conference play and then, through the conference tournament and then into March Madness. And so any team, and I think Kansas, the reason why there's been a lot of speculation there is because Kansas, I think, feels like piece away from being a complete basketball team. There are a lot of other that are on that level right there too that I'm sure have reached out to Naquan Tomlin. So I don't know. I think that the irony of it would, incredible storylines, and it would make the 2 Sunflower Showdowns insane this season if Naquan Tomlin did that. I don't know if the Jayhawks are the most likely landing spot.
My gut says they aren't.
From a geographical standpoint, sure.
Sure.
Like I think that, it does make sense, but I would imagine there are probably, gosh, what would you think? Like 24 teams that have probably reached out to Naquan Tomlin so far about utilizing his services for the next 3 months.
Yes.
So I think that there's going to be a lot of competition for him.
Depending also on what the other piece of why he was let go from the team that we aren't publicly made aware of, right? We all know about the bar fight situation. We don't know what the other thing was. I mean, I'd call him from Wichita State too. You know what I mean? Like I'd call him if I'm just about anybody, because I don't think
But realistically, he's going to go to a place where number one, he can continue to graze his NBA draft stock, and number two, can legitimately compete for a national championship this year.
If I'm Naquan Tomlin and I'm just like being realistic with the situation, being at a place where I could be the featured offensive guy or a more featured offensive guy is important to the NBA possibilities. And the
but
one
how many
thing about
programs can you jump right into?
I
and
don't. That's what I'm.
immediately take it over. Right?
Agree. So then it becomes this weighted thing, right? And we're totally speculating. Everybody understand that. Like I have not had any conversations with Naquan Tomlin or any team or anybody, like zero, other than the obvious that he's a really good player. A lot of people are going to be interested in. But if you're Tomlin, think about what you've got less time now to accomplish than you did going into this season. And that's pretty much to show whatever it is you need to show to the NBA, why he returned to college basketball anyway. So that's where it's like, for me, if you ask me if, would Kansas be interested? I would say absolutely. Would Tomlin go to Kansas? I would say I don't think it would be the first choice because he would be probably option 4 offensively there. Maybe 3, probably 4 at best. So to me, if I'm Tomlin, that doesn't make as much sense. What is the team that's good that may be lacking offensively? What is the team that, the role that I could have is the biggest possible while also being good enough to at least, reach the NCAA tournament, I think is probably a decent baseline. That's where I think if you're Tomlin, you have to look, because I don't know with Jerome Tang as your coach and as close as he was with those players, if the spite portion of this, in some circumstances, like, well, I'm going to go to Kansas, watch this. Maybe that exists. Again, I don't know. I just know that Jerome Tang is there. So it's like, we'll see. It'll be fascinating to watch. Another week, we'll probably know pretty quickly what his plan is, but we'll watch that as well. K-State right now, Tommy, they've looked fine. I don't want to say fine without him because that's mean and unfair, but they've looked better than we thought without him. I think that's fair, and they have. They're winning games. They look impressive. They're winning close games. They're winning despite the guy we thought to be the offensive juggernaut on this team being far from that so far this year. And I think K-State fans should be pretty excited about the prospect because I think I'm raising my floor for them with each and every game I see them play. My floor initially was make the NCAA tournament. Now it's turning into I think this could be a middle of the pack Big 12 team for sure.
Yeah, the resilience I think that they have shown in those back-to-back overtime games where they came out on top in each one of them, that tells you a lot about this team. And tells you a lot about the way they're coached and the way that they believe and all of that. But there were multiple times during those overtime contests over the last week and a half where I thought eventually this is going to come back to bite them. They're playing with fire here, letting these teams hang around and then going into overtime. And then it takes a miraculous shot from Tyler Perry to win the game and all of that. They're playing with fire, but it's developing, I think, that tough exterior crust, where they can overcome things when they're in trouble and they're not playing their best. And that's what it's going to take for, a team to have success in March is when you're not playing your best game to still be able to find a way to win. And that's what Kansas State has done. I think middle of the pack in the Big 12. Sure. I think that's appropriate. I think in the Big 12, it is a good conference so far from what we've seen. There are only, I think, two teams maybe that are not performing up to standards, and that's probably West Virginia and Oklahoma State. But other than that, the conference looks really, really solid. So it's going to be difficult for them once they get into conference play. But, knowing what they've been building on in this non-conference, I think that they should be somewhere in the middle of the pack.
We can end with this. There's not going to be like an unbeaten conference team this year. I think that, probably I don't see anybody making it through with only like 4 losses. I would guess at this point right now that, if you can get through with 4 or 5 losses, that's probably going to be big enough. That's how competitive I think this thing's going to be. And I think you'll have 2 of the, the 5 best teams in the country, if not 3 between KU and Houston, maybe even Baylor playing in there. And I still think that's how good, like you mentioned the 2 teams that haven't lived up to the standard, but we know in this league anything happens. K-State's resiliencies that they've shown this year is part of the reason why I kind of like their chances to get up there because they're going to lose games in the Big 12. Everybody is, but they seem poised and primed to be able to bounce back from that. Are they talented enough? I do still think that's a bit of a question, and we'll see that play out, especially without Naquan Tomlin. But it's going to be so good. It will entertain us through this winter, maybe more than it ever has. It's going to be incredible. 869-1240, that's the IHOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll look briefly around the rest of the NFL from Sunday as we wrap up here on Sports Daily on a Reaction Monday.
Go! Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here. Tommy, as we look back on the NFL day, and we've got 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. Biggest takeaways for you? I think the Cowboys are probably the most obvious as they take care of the Eagles. It was a good matchup for Dallas, so we'll see. It's really, can they avoid their dud game? But I honestly, for me, I think it might be Cincinnati. And another really impressive performance from Jake Browning, assuming he's fine moving forward. They're very much in the mix here, I think. So, Dallas is the obvious one. I think Cincinnati's the sneaky one from yesterday.
Yeah, and you look at Cincinnati, and then all of a sudden the competition around them in the AFC is they're competing for a playoff spot. The Jags fell off yesterday. The Texans fell off yesterday. I mean, all of a sudden the Bengals, and really, let's be honest, the Bills, I mean, they both look like they're back in the race all of a sudden with 4 games to go. So I'm with you. I mean, the AFC playoff picture is very muddy, very convoluted. It's probably going to come down to the wire. It's going to be crazy the last couple of weeks as we start to have these teams jockeying for playoff position. But then to your point also, the Cowboys looked incredible. And,
they do.
The Eagles, I mean, it's been a tough couple games for them with the Niners and then the Cowboys. They've not looked like they're up to snuff against either one of those teams in the last 2 weeks. All of a sudden, I think the Cowboys and the Niners are kind of separating themselves.
Yeah, Philadelphia's problem is they don't match up well with either the Cowboys or the Niners. That's not to their strengths. The Cowboys' problem is they don't match up well to the Niners, as we saw earlier this year. So, Dak Prescott's reached a new level. We'll see how that plays itself out. But, I mentioned Cincinnati, also in the state of Ohio. All of a sudden, Tommy, Joe Flacco has been better than Deshaun Watson was.
How about that?
And that probably shouldn't surprise us tremendously. Flacco's never been bad, right? Even when he was with the Jets. So with that defense, as I'm looking at the AFC right now, and we talk about Kansas City being able to pop, but the reality is also happening in the AFC is really everybody that's in the mix right now in the AFC, including Cleveland and then Cincinnati with new quarterbacks. It's kind of getting to the point where, in the NFC, it's going to be Dallas, Philadelphia, or San Francisco, period, full stop. Nobody else is doing it, right? In the AFC, though, Tommy, just realistically, I think if we watch football enough, we could see Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Cleveland, or Cincinnati, or Buffalo, all as teams that could beat any of the other ones in a game.
Yeah. By the way, Thursday Night Football with Justin Herbert having a broken finger, the Chargers and Raiders, that quarterback matchup, Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. It's going to be terrible.
Is Herbert for sure out for a while? Because my fantasy teams, as they enter the playoffs, are not that he's helped me at all the last 2 weeks.
Today, the announcement came down. He's unlikely to play it.
All right. got some work to do there. Mix that in. All right, thanks, everyone. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap. We'll tell you what you can hear today on the network as we wrap up Sports Daily.
Kevin Harlan here from Westwood One, inviting you to join me and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner every Monday this season. It's Westwood One's 45th year of bringing you primetime NFL games, and the schedule is packed with great matchups. Plus, you'll hear Rich Eisen from the studios with interviews and the latest news around the NFL. Don't miss any of the action every week on Monday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at WestwoodOneSports.com.
As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers Stay Hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I like putting parlay bets together, hammering the overs, and anytime player touchdown bets always have me on the edge of my seat. So if you're ready to do the same, visit FanDuel.com/win and kick off the NFL season. That's FanDuel.com/win. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
21 plus in President, Kansas. First online real money wager. Only $5 pregame money line wager required. First online real money wager. Only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issue. This non-withdrawable bonus bets. It expires 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problems? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with a minimum of a 2-entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
Christmas is a time of magic. Snow falling softly outside as the fragrant smell of cookies fill the air, along with the beautiful, well-loved melodies of Christmas carols, colorful lights blinking on the tree, beautifully wrapped packages beneath, all standing next to a roaring fire warming a mug of hot chocolate. It truly is a magical season, but sometimes in the rush and push of what needs to be done, Christmas becomes less than it could and should be. That's when it's time to step into Mike Seltzer Jewelers, 2929 North Rock Road in Comatose Center, where the magic of Christmas truly awaits you. Allow Mike and the staff to ease you back into the enchantment Christmas holds by helping you select stunning gifts from an array of exquisite jewelry. Almost every piece 50% off now through December 24th. Sit back and enjoy the sound of Christmas carols playing softly as your selections are wrapped for free, and you are sent home with a bit of Christmas enchantment in every box. 50% off at Mike Seltzer Jewelers, where the magic of Christmas awaits you.
Hello, I'm Derek of Derek's Deals. Derek's Deals is the local leader in liquidated merchandise pallets. We can help you become a reseller. This is a great way to make extra money by reselling merchandise on eBay, Amazon, flea markets, garage sales, or Facebook Marketplace. Derek's Deals is open to the public. We have new pallets weekly. Pallets range in size and price, and you get to choose your pallet. No appointment necessary. Open Fridays 12 to 6 and Saturdays 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come by 1518 East Lewis. Find us on Facebook at Derek'sDealsICT.com.
The KF8 Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Hello, Wichita. This is Jeff Lutz. Happy holidays from all of us at KFH Radio.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody, as we wrap up Sports Daily here on a Monday. A Chiefs dominant conversation. What the Chiefs say all week will probably be front and center as they have to quickly react to it. It is a strange week. We don't have any college basketball until this weekend again. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Well, I know how I feel. I don't feel good about it. I want to see some college basketball. But we do get 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, Tommy. What do you think about that?
Well, by the way, the other thing we didn't mention, Shohei Ohtani is incredibly wealthy.
We'll get to it.
I'm hoping that I could borrow some money from him. He's not going to have any shortage of it.
It's just an absurd amount of money. But it actually, when my first reaction to it was they're crazy. And then I was like, you know what? It's actually not that crazy. We'll get into that throughout. So tonight you've got the Terry Nooner show at 6 o'clock. You've got the Paul Mills show at 7 o'clock here on KFH. So over on KNSS, we get Monday Night Football. We will have, of the 2 games, Packers-Giants. So that's what's on tap for you today. We'll be back. Max is back with us tomorrow. We'll give away some more movie tickets and react to it all on Sports Daily. For Tommy and Max, I'm Jacob. See you then.